we're going to get started with Scratch. So if you're in the class, there's a link with some things that we'll be looking at. So first of all, if you just type Scratch programming, then you'll get to Scratch, which is a visual program in your browser, easy for kids to get started programming environment. It's also good for us. I'm going to sign out so that we can see what it looks like before you create an account. So there are always some projects that are listed on the home page so you can see, but to get started we'll click on the ideas, and that's also the first link here at the top is a good place to get started. So there are different tutorials. Try It is a good place to start, so let's see what that looks like. There's a video link which I'm going to skip because we're making a video, not creating one, not watching one. Okay, so it's telling me that I'm going to move a block over here, and if we look over here, then we have, I'm sure this is what the video this video is saying, but over here our programming statements are broken down into different categories. We could scroll down to go through all of them, or we can click. So there's a loop. So there's a loop that repeats 10 times. There's a loop that will go forever. There's if tests. There's another loop there. There are also, so there are different conditions that we can check. So we can check if the cat here, we can check if the cat here is touching the mouse pointer or is touching a color. So there's lots of different things that we can use here. There's math operations that we can do. We can create variables, store values, change values. And up at the top, we have the cat, so we can move the cat, we can get the cat's location. Here in looks, we can have the cat print something to the screen, ask a question and get the answer, and also playing sounds. There's other things that can be added, other features. But so that's the basics, and I wanted to come back to this tutorial. So we'll go back to the getting started tutorial and see what it wanted us to do. So it's going to ask me to do a move blocks. So there's a move 10 steps, and I think that is 10 pixels. Let's see what it asks us to do next. So we're going to say hello, and that's purple. There's say hello, and when the green flag is clicked, which is like start the program. So that is over here. Okay, and that's it. I think this goes into another tutorial, so let's leave this right there. So I can run this now and click the mouse. It said hello for 2 seconds and it moved for 10. I can drag it around here as well. So the cat is there. Just the lay of the land here. So this is where the program actually runs over here. So we can make that smaller or bigger depending on how big we want it to be. This is, so things are running over here. Here is room for code. Here's where we have our different programming features, and down here we have the different parts of the program that we have to work with. So we have the cat, which is called sprite 1, but I could call it something else, my cat. So then it shows up as my cat. And when I click on my cat, I see my code. There's this other thing over here called the stage. And when I click on this stage, I don't see the code for the cat anymore. There's code that could be for the stage. I don't have any right now. So things that could happen when the stage, I could do, so you could look through here. Some of the things that can happen are similar, but then others are different. So I could say next backdrop when the space is, I don't have more than one backdrop. So if I have this clicked on the stage here, there's code for the stage, which is the background. Then I can pick backdrops. So I can add another, the default background is just empty. I could add in something else. So I'll add in a few of these. These are built-in ones. You could also upload your own pictures. So now if I run this, that code from the backdrop is running. I can click on my cat sprite. I can click on my stage, and when I click on the stage, I can edit the backdrops that I have available. And some of these commands here will pick, I can pick particular backdrops there, depending on, so it could be levels in a game or something like that. When I click on my cat, the cat has costumes, so I can click on the costumes tab, and by default it comes with 2, which makes it look like it's running. So here if I say next costume, why don't we do when something happens. So let's see, when we'll do another key. So why don't we say when the right arrow is pressed, we'll go to the next costume and we'll move. So now it looks like it's running just by switching between those different costumes. And you could look around to see what other costumes are built in and available. You could also make your own. Okay, so that's the basics of what is available here. Now, anything that we can do in a regular programming language, we could do here potentially as well, because we have loops. We have so we have loops that are available here. So we can do for loops, while loops. We can do if tests. There's math operators. There's ands and ors, Boolean logic. We can do things with strings. So we can have a text and pick out particular letters or get the length of text. So all the normal things that we do in beginning programming in Python or JavaScript or other languages, we could potentially do here. We can also do stuff with the mouse and graphics. Let's see what they want us to do next. I'm going to leave it, let's see, I'm going to leave it like that right now. I'm going to sign in. So if you don't have an account, then you would be doing join scratched. But I'm going to be doing sign in because I already have an account here. All right, so now I could save this if I wanted to. It's called Untitled 7. This is try this first or something is what it was. So then I can click the share, and if I click the share, then this link becomes accessible. I could include that link then in turning in a homework assignment. So tried the first tutorial And that's what somebody would see when they click on my project. So they can run the project. I might tell them try out spacebar, right arrow, and what was the other one? There was another one. It was the green flag. Okay. So that's getting started. I want to show you a few examples that I already have ready, and any of the projects you could see inside as well. So why don't I show you, I have that link. If I'm going to sign out here, since I click the share, anybody can see the project to run it. You can click inside and see the code, and you can also modify and save it yourself. So maybe you're going to change this to 20. Now this is not going to change my version of the project. So when somebody goes to this link, they'll still see the project as I had it. But if you're signed in, then you can save it now into your account. And that's true for any of the projects that you see anywhere. So I would need to sign in to save this. Okay, so I'm going to leave. Any of the projects that you see here, you can try out different projects. The ones that are featured here probably work. And you can search for different things, like maybe we want to look at projects related to binary. And if you click on one, then you can run it. You can also see the code. Okay, so there's a few that I want to point out. So I have a couple different categories of things that you can take a look at. So things that are similar to what we've done in Python that I had sitting around. So one of the first programs that you do is counting up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, blast off, or something like that. Okay, so this one here, it just counts up. There's a count variable that's going up by 1, and you can change whether that's going to be shown or not, and then it says it here as well. If we go and look at the code, so we have a when flag clicked. There's a variable that I created here by make variable. So I can make a variable, call it whatever you want. Then, so when the flag is clicked, I dragged over this set count to 1. If I want to get rid of one of these blocks, I can just drag it over there. I drug a repeat loop. So repeat 10 times, I put over there. It's going to say, so there's a say that I can drag over here, and I can put the variable in. Right there it says hello, but I could put the variable in over there, and I could change whatever that is. So instead of saying the count, I could have done the count is, and then count. Okay, so anywhere that there's one of these circles, I could potentially drag in a variable, or I could put in a specific value. So there's a 10. Instead of the 10, I could put in a variable. It wouldn't really have much meaning there. Okay, so this is, we have a loop that repeats a certain number of times. We have a variable that was created here in the variables, and we can change the variable and use the variable. Okay, so that's one example, and you can check out, there's two more examples for you to check out. I'm going to look at a classic Scratch kind of program. So the Scratch gives us graphics and the mouse, which is nice. So Pong is a classic beginning program in any graphical system. So this one here is the right and left arrows on the keyboard. And it sort of glitches there, but that's just the way the game is here that I made. And then it's done. Well, the ball's not moving anymore. Lots of things that you could add to this to make it more exciting. You could speed up the ball, you could slow down the ball, you could keep track of how long I stayed alive. You could speed up the game as it goes along. There's a couple ideas there. So let's look inside and see what we have. All right. So this thing here, we have a backdrop, and I picked one of the standard backdrops and just changed the color here to be black on the bottom. So there's the backdrop, and the backdrop doesn't have any code. I have two sprites. So there's a ball, and I went to the costume and picked out, searched for a costume. I wanted a ball since it's Pong, so I picked one of the balls. And same thing for the paddle. I wanted a block. I searched for block. There wasn't anything called block. Of course, you could make your own. There was something called paddle. The code for the sprite, there's pretty much just one thing. When you click the green flag, it starts at the XY00 position. If I connect that again. Okay, so if I just did this part here, this is no longer connected to the green flag. So it starts at 0, 0. This is like math coordinates. So X goes this direction, positive X goes this way, negative X goes this way, positive Y and negative Y. I point it in the direction 45. So there's a little graphic showing that 45 degrees is in that direction. So if I tell it to move forward, it's going to go that way. And then I have this forever loop. So what is it doing? It moves. If it hits an edge, it bounces. That was a built-in option. I could maybe have code to do that, but it was a built-in option, which is nice. If it's touching the paddle, so what do we want it to do if it's touching the paddle? We want it to bounce. And I tried out with different things we could do, and turning by 270 degrees works. If it's touching the bottom, so touching the bottom I use by detecting if it hit black. So if it hits black, then there's a stop, and that is somewhere there in the control. So all that happens in this forever loop, and then there's a wait. So there's a wait option here as well, so that we can have a loop that just repeatedly does the same thing, moves a little bit, and then waits some amount of time. I don't think that going lower than 0.001 actually changes. Maybe 1/100th of a second is the smallest time that actually is meaningful here. Okay, so that's a classic Scratch kind of thing where we used the nice features of we've got a ball, we can make it move just by these simple commands, and you can look at what the paddle does. So the paddle is pretty simple. It just always goes back to a certain location when the green flags. So that goes back to kind of the middle. And then a right arrow changes the x coordinate of the paddle 10 this way, and a left arrow -10 on the x. Okay, so there's an example of the fun kind of thing to do in Scratch. Do something with graphics, do something with the mouse, and like a game. There's a couple other examples you can check out. There's some examples of things that we've done in Python that are pretty short to do in Python, but if you look at the code to do it in Scratch, it's a little bit of a pain. So this one is testing if a number is prime. So I can type in a number here. 101 is prime. If I run it again, I could give it something that's not prime, and it says it's not prime. Now this is the code, which isn't really complicated. The algorithm for this is not very complicated. If we kind of look here, we're doing something. We have a number, so there's the number 24. We have some x that we're going to try, so is 24 divided by x. Here we have, it found that 6 was a divisor, so is 7 a divisor of 24? Basically the idea is we're going to try x equals 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. If any of them are divisors, it's not prime. That's what this is doing. And in Python, that's maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6 lines of code. But here, you can look at this to see how it is actually working. It's a good thing to try and trace through what all the details of this. Okay, so this is one example, or you could pick the other example. This is another example of something that's pretty easy in Python. And just a few lines really, but then if you try to do it in Scratch, it gets to be a bit annoying to do anything complicated. So 43 in binary is this. Let's do something that's easy to verify. 12. 1100, that's correct. The code is here, which is not too bad, but that's still, it looks kind of uglier than in Python. So the more complicated your expressions, it just gets tedious to drag all this stuff over. Okay, so now there are some challenges for you. So here are some classic programming exercises that are similar to things that we have done. Either they're homework assignments we've done, or we've done it in class and lecture. And if you take some time to look through the ideas, look through some of these, understand how they work, you should be able to figure out how to do some of these now. Okay, so now you'll actually have to look at the examples, change things, and try them out. Okay, so for H9, what we're going to do is pick one of these. Some of them are pretty easy. Pick one. So if you figure one of them out, that'll be the requirement for one of the programs. Just pick one and make a Scratch program that makes it work. And then do something else. So open-ended, think of something that you want to do in Scratch that's mildly interesting. It doesn't have to be complicated. It could be anything that's more graphical. So an animation or something. You could pick something off of one of these examples. Just pick part of that if there's an idea, or you can ask for some other suggestions. So as part of H9, we might give you some other suggestions here, but it would be nice if you just had a thought of something you wanted to try out. So H9 will make you pick one of these to figure out, and something else. and that'll be your Scratch training. Other